Hello, Mike Gunn here from Unorthodox Audio, and this is a quick walkthrough video of our latest virtual instrument, Superfly drums. Just so you know the sort of structure of the video before we start, we'll have a look first of all at the main instrument, and then we'll take a look at the alternatively mapped kit, which is more of a general Midi mapped version. So just a bit of background on Superfly drums and where it all came from. Rich, our co-founder, has a really nice old Ludwig drum kit. I think it's late 60s, early 70s. I'm not sure on the exact model. So what Rich was after was to record his Ludwig kit in a very sort of unprocessed way. So he had those raw recordings like you're in a control room and you've got a drummer playing in the live room, sort of the sound you'd hear at that point, rather than a sort of fully mixed and processed drum sound. And it was such a great little kit that he showed it to me, and then he was saying how he wanted to add a electronic kick to it so that you could sort of dial that in and give the kick a bit more oomph. And then that gave us the idea, well, why don't we make this a full library called Superfly drums, because the main drum sounds are very raw, but that kind of like 60s, 70s funk sort of, and just generally the recordings at that time, the drums were to me sound pretty raw. So the idea is to have that raw acoustic kit and then make a whole package of electronic sounds that really complement each of those elements that you can dial in. And then we thought, well, actually it'd be pretty cool to have a crossfader as well. So, you know, obviously if you set it in the middle, then you've got all the acoustic and electronic sounds, whereas you could then move it fully left on our screen so you get the acoustic sounds, and then you could move it fully right to have electronic, as you see there. And obviously that could then be assigned to MIDI control, so you could use it as a creative tool as well. So that's basically where we came up with the plan for Superfly drums. So let's take a look at the main instrument. So when you open up the Superfly drums folder and you open up the instruments folder, you'll see here on the left we've got Superfly drums.nki, so that's the main instrument, and then we've got two further folders, one with the general MIDI alternatives in and one with a multi-output version of the main instrument. We'll have a look at multi-output and how to set that up and work with that in a separate video. So after this video, if you have a look at our multi-output video, if you want to use that version, it will show you how to set that up. We'll look at the general MIDI alternatives a bit later in this video. So for now, let's open up Superfly drums. So this is our main Superfly drums instrument. And that will open fully acoustic. So if you play it now, you'll hear it's in the fully acoustic setup. You know this because the crossfader is fully on the left under acoustic. So just to run you quickly through the controls on this screen, all these faders here are for the acoustic elements of the kit, and then we'll look at the electronic elements a little bit later, but these knobs here are to do with the volume of each of the electronic elements. So just before we start sort of having a bit of a play, it's good for me to mention the mapping that we've done on Superfly drums, because the reason we've got these general MIDI alternatives is because we've moved away from the standard general MIDI mapping of drums to make it a bit more keyboard friendly, so you can do a lot more intricate hi-hat playing on your keyboard with our main instrument than you'd be able to on the sort of general MIDI mapped drum kit instruments that you can get. So let's have a quick look now at the mapping. So here's basically the mapping for our main kit. On C1 we've got kick, and then we've got two different snares on D1 and E1. So you've got your kick, and then we've got one type of snare on D1, another type of snare on E1. We've got a high pitch snare on D sharp 1. We've got sort of side stick on C sharp 1. And then one of the main things we've got is we've got closed hi-hats on both F and F sharp, which means that you can play nice intricate hi-hats with this instrument. So, for example, if I just play a little groove on the keyboard, you'll be able to hear that sort of intricate hi-hat playability. And I always find doing things like that really difficult on the general Midi mapped sort of kits that are out there. So that's why we've changed this. And usually there'll be a couple of keys for each tom. We've just put the toms on one key each. Because this kit is much more about the raw sound of like the hi-hats and the snares and all that, than having loads of really close tom action, although you could do it. But they're just on one key. We've got the open hi-hat and the hi-hat pedal. They're just on the standard keys. And then we've got splash on C2, crash on C sharp 2. Then we've got the ride bell and the ride on D2 and D sharp 2. And then two extra little ones we put in is hi-hat chokes on E2. Now you can make your own hi-hat choke, obviously using the open hi-hat and hi-hat pedal or closed hi-hat, as you would do normally. But this is just if you want to use an actual sampled hi-hat choke, we've got one in here. So that's a full choke sample rather than a choke sample that's been made in contact by closing off the open hi-hat. You'll hear they just sound slightly different, so we've got that in there if you want to use it. And then lastly, we've got a reverse cymbal on F2. Now this is velocity sensitive, so if you play it lightly, it takes a long time to come in. If you play it much harder, it's much shorter. So that's the mapping of the drum kit. As I say, there's a few idiosyncrasies in there, but once you get used to them, actually, I found that I've thought, well, I'm not sure why they didn't do this before, especially with the hi-hats having two notes to be able to get really intricate playability on the keyboard on those. So let's go back to the main view now. So just to play a bit, just so you can hear a few more sounds. Obviously, there's loads of demos on the website, but just so you can hear a bit more what it sounds like out the box. There we go. Just so you, I mean, I'm not really a drummer, but just so you can hear some of those different sounds there. And so it's pretty cool, like raw, like acoustic sounding kit. That's basically it for the acoustic side of things. So if we move this crossfader now over to electronic, now this is mapped to mod wheel as well. You'll see it'll move with mod wheel. You can right click that and remove that and assign it to a different MIDI CC if you want to. So moving that to fully electronic, you'll now hear all the sounds are the electronic kit. What we've got in there, a few little things. Instead of the sampled hi-hat chokes we were talking about earlier, in the acoustic kit, we've got this funny little sound. But it actually works quite nicely within things. Again, we've got the velocity sensitive reverse. So if you hit it lightly, it takes a long time to come in. Hit it harder, it takes a much shorter time. So as I explained with the acoustic kit, these faders sort of mix these corresponding elements. They alter the volume of these corresponding elements. The knobs underneath with the electronic sort of symbol on, they do the same for the electronic elements. So if you want much less of the hi-hats in there, if you take that down, it makes the hi-hats much less prominent, take it up. It really brings them out. You want to move back to our default position at all, just command and click. So that's pretty straightforward. So as long as you remember the faders, the acoustic kit, and the knobs with the electronic symbol on are the electronic kit, then you can't go far wrong really with that. So then to get more to this sort of hybrid kit sound, what I like to do is just place it in the middle there, roughly in the middle, the crossfader, and then if we just play a little bit on the keyboard, you'll hear we've got both the acoustic and the electronic sounds now. So you'll hear those all coming out. Now at this point, obviously then, this is where it really comes into its own. So say you want the acoustic kit, but you just want to add in a bit of electronic kick. If we take all the other electronic elements down to 0, then you'll hear that support to the kick. So without it, and then bringing in that electronic kick, maybe we want to do the same for the hi-hats. Adds in a bit of that sort of crisp electronic sound. Again with the toms, that's what they sound like acoustic, and then add in some of the electronic. They've all been tuned, so you can hear those. So this is where you can really end up, I think I put it as going down a wonderful rabbit hole of creative funkiness or something like that. But basically this is where you can really end up like really curating your own drum kit sound within here using these controls. And you can use the crossfade as a creative tool if you want. You could automate that, so perhaps one bar is the acoustic kit and then you're moving it over and you've got the electronic kit for the next bar, if that works for your piece or whatever you're writing. So that's pretty much it in terms of this main instrument and the main view. The only other thing to quickly mention to you is the pan controls. So if you click on pan, then you'll see all these pan controls appear. Now, the pan controls act on both the acoustic and electronic kit elements at the same time. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, where there's only one control, it's just in the elements that are listed. For the toms, we've got 3. So H stands for high, M for mid, FL for floor, for each of the tom elements. And then for the cymbals, SP is for splash, CR is for crash, RI is for ride, then this RV below, that's for that velocity sensitive reverse that we've got on F2. So that is the main instrument. Let's take a look now at the general MIDI alternatives, and what that is those alternative map kits. So let's close the main instrument. No, we don't want to save changes, thank you. And if we go here to General MIDI Alternatives, double click on that folder and you'll see this has opened up. Now, because we've done multi-output versions of the main instrument, which is in this folder here, multi-output version, that's of the main instrument. When you go into the General MIDI Alternatives, we've got the main sort of stereo kit, which is like our main kit, just using a stereo output. But we've also put the multi for this alternative map kit in here as well. So just ignore the multi stuff for now. We'll look at that in the next video, the multi setup video. If we open up this stereo general MIDI mapped kit, so Superfly drums, GM, alternative, stereo. So this is the general MIDI map kit, and the reason why I've put this in here is we know a lot of people like to use drum pads or electronic kits or anything like that. And they tend to work off the general MIDI standard, and so in this we've recreated our Superfly drum kit, but mapped in the general MIDI way. So, for example, we don't have the 2 different notes playing hi-hats now, but we do have, as is standard in general MIDI, 2 different notes on each of the toms. So, for example, you'll hear all those mapped for toms. The only elements that aren't in this kit, so you'll hear it sounds exactly the same as our main instrument. The only elements that aren't in this general MIDI map kit are the sampled hi-hat chokes, which were on E2 in our main kit, and the reverse cymbal, the velocity sensitive reverse cymbals, because there's no general MIDI mapping for those, so we've not included them. We didn't want things to appear on random drum pads that shouldn't be there. So if you have a look at Sam's demo on our website, or I think we'll have put it on YouTube as well. If you look at Sam's demo that he's done, he's using this general MIDI mapped kit because in his video demo, he's playing his electronic drum kit, so he's triggering these sounds with his pads rather than how I've been doing it today on the keyboard. Other than that, everything's the same. We've got all the pan controls. Probably should mention with the pan generally, we've set it up. You can probably see just by looking at it, we've set it up from the drummer's perspective. So that's kind of where it is as standard, but you can move it about wherever you fancy. And that's basically it. That's our Superfly drums virtual instrument. We've had a great time making this one. It's really funky, and we've really enjoyed using it on our own projects that we've been working on whilst we've had this in development. So we hope you find it useful. Do share with us any tracks that you make using Superfly drums, because we love hearing them on different things. So if you're interested in the multi-output versions, then please join me on the next video where I'll take you through using those. And if not, enjoy Superfly drums, and hopefully you'll join us on our next sample library walkthrough. Thanks.